It's funny how a single sentence can sever a bond that was once thought unbreakable. For years, I'd been my father's shadow, his caregiver, his lifeline. Dad was everything to me. A man of quiet strength and unwavering kindness, now reduced to a shell by a rare neurological disease. The only hope was an experimental treatment in Switzerland, a fortune in a bank account that was a testament to every sacrifice he and I had ever made. The money wasn't a luxury, it was his future, and I, his devoted son, was its sole guardian, until my sister Amelia decided it was hers. The phone call had been an ambush, a casual conversation leading into a venomous strike. "Dad's getting worse, Amelia. We have to book the flight," I'd pleaded, my voice tight with a fear I'd been living with for months. I could hear the clinking of champagne flutes on her end, the muffled laughter of a party I wasn't invited to. She paused, and for a moment, I thought she was considering the gravity of the situation. Then, with a chilling nonchalance, she said, "Oh, I already used it. It's gone, for the wedding." The world around me blurred. The scent of my father's favorite flowers, the faint hum of his oxygen machine, all of it faded, replaced by the ringing in my ears. I felt a primal rage, a heat that seared through my veins, but I could only stammer, "Amelia, that was for Dad. It was everything. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine too. Get over it, Lucas. I'm a bride." They'd probably shake their head and call it a classic case of sibling favoritism gone wrong. A poisonous seed planted in a dysfunctional family garden and left to rot. And they'd be right. Our childhood was a battleground, a silent war of favoritism and emotional neglect. Amelia, with her angelic face and manipulative charm, was our parents' golden child. She could do no wrong. My broken bones from a bicycle accident were a clumsy mistake. Her broken vase, a priceless antique, was just a little accident. Dad loved her with a blindness that bordered on worship, and Mom doted on her every whim. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who cleaned up the messes and was always an afterthought. I remember one Christmas I'd saved my allowance for months to buy Dad a vintage watch. He thanked me with a pat on the head, then spent the rest of the day fawning over the gaudy necklace Amelia had picked up on a whim. The message was clear. My worth was measured not in love, but in my ability to be a convenient background character. This wasn't just about the money. This was the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less than. The memory of a small, terrified boy watching his sister receive all the praise and love he so desperately craved was a bitter taste in my mouth. That phone call wasn't just a betrayal. It was the final, devastating blow. I watched my father wither away, the light in his eyes dimming with each passing day. The experimental treatment, the hope, the very possibility of a future for him. All of it was snatched away by a sister who cared more about a designer dress and a 4-tiered cake than her own father's life. The funeral was a blur of black suits and crocodile tears. Amelia, in a stunning black dress, sobbed theatrically, hugging the mourners and accepting their condolences with an air of tragic grace. She even had the audacity to ask me, "Isn't it beautiful?" "The dress? It's from the same place I got my wedding gown. A steal." My heart felt like a block of ice, cold and heavy in my chest. I couldn't look at her without seeing the phantom trail of my father's last breaths, the unspoken accusation in his fading gaze. The money was gone, and so was he. In the aftermath, the emptiness was suffocating. Our family, already fractured, had shattered completely. My mother, in her grief, sided with Amelia, justifying her actions as a moment of panic, a girl's dream. They called me selfish for not understanding, for not moving on. They didn't see the ghost of my father haunting the empty chairs, the quiet corners of our house. They didn't see me, just a broken man with nothing left but grief and an ember of rage burning in my chest. The world had moved on, and so had my family, leaving me behind in a wasteland of loss and betrayal. I was alone, and in that solitude, a terrible clarity dawned. Vengeance wasn't a choice. It was a necessity. It was a promise I made to the man who gave me life, and to the child who was always second best. The next few months were a strange, transformative period. I moved out of the family home, severing the last threads of a toxic past. I threw myself into my work, not for the money, but for the focus it provided, the distraction from the gnawing emptiness. I started going to the gym, channeling the fury into physical discipline. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was building a new me, one forged in the fires of betrayal. I looked in the mirror and saw a man with a purpose, with a cold, clear resolve etched into his features. The boy who was always second best was gone. In his place was a man who would watch the golden child fall from her pedestal, who would make her feel every ounce of the pain she had so casually inflicted. And I knew exactly how I'd do it. Her wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a stage for her final act, and for my grand entrance. The external narrator, a silent spectator with a penchant for black humor, would find this part particularly amusing. They'd note the meticulous detail of the planning, the sheer theatrical quality of the revenge. It wasn't a spontaneous act of anger, it was an art form. It was a play, a symphony of suffering orchestrated with a precision that would make a seasoned military strategist proud. They'd watch, popcorn in hand, as Lucas, the formerly passive victim, transformed into a vengeful puppet master. They'd likely comment on the predictable nature of human revenge narratives, but concede that sometimes the classics are the best. The first step was information. I needed to know everything about her wedding. The venue, the guest list, the vendors, the timing. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle. I used a fake email address and pretended to be a wedding planner, a consultant, a potential vendor, collecting a mountain of data. I learned about the florist, a notoriously unreliable artist named Fiona, who was more concerned with artistic integrity than delivering on time. I found out about the catering company, a high-end service known for its delicious food and its cripplingly high prices. And I learned about her fiancé, a wealthy but incredibly insecure man named Ethan, who was more concerned with appearances than with love. He was the perfect Mark. He craved social validation, and his one weakness was his desperate need to be seen as the successful, perfect husband. I had found my target. The plan was a multi-stage operation, a series of dominoes that would lead to a catastrophic collapse. The first domino was the guest list. I cross-referenced it with an old high school yearbook and found a name I recognized, Chloe, a girl Amelia had mercilessly bullied for years. Chloe had blossomed into a brilliant journalist, and I knew she held a simmering resentment for my sister. I reached out to her, and after a few carefully worded conversations, I explained the situation. Chloe, a natural storyteller, was instantly captivated by the drama. Her price, an exclusive story. The title she chose was perfect. The bride who stole her father's life savings for a wedding. She was the perfect accomplice, a professional with a taste for poetic justice. She'd be my eyes and ears at the wedding, a silent observer gathering the final pieces of the story. The next domino was the catering. I had a friend, a former classmate, who now worked as a sous chef at the catering company Amelia had hired. I reached out, appealing to an old debt of gratitude. He owed me a favor, and I was cashing it in. The plan was simple. Substitute the most expensive ingredients with cheaper, more bland alternatives, but leave the expensive bill. The food would be edible but tasteless. The guests would notice the difference, and the caterer would be blamed, leading to a public confrontation. I had seen the contract. It was ironclad and had a hefty penalty clause for a last-minute cancellation. Amelia would be trapped, forced to serve her guests a mediocre meal at a premium price. Then there was the florist. I'd heard through my fake email persona that Fiona, the florist, had a bitter rival in the industry. I anonymously tipped off her rival about the extravagant wedding and offered a bribe. The rival, a man named Mark, was a shark. He didn't care about ethics, he cared about a good payday and a chance to one-up Fiona. I gave him a large sum of money to create a rival arrangement, a stunning display of rare orchids and exotic flowers, but I told him to have them delivered to the wrong address, a warehouse miles away from the venue, at the last minute. The floral arrangements Amelia had already paid for would arrive. A mismatched, wilting mess. While the far more impressive bouquets from Mark would be just out of reach, a tantalizing glimpse of what could have been. But the centerpiece of my plan, the grand finale, was something else entirely. It was a secret I'd been keeping for years, a document I'd unearthed from my father's old files. It was his will, not the one our family knew about, the one that left everything to Amelia. This was his real will. A legally binding document he had secretly drafted and had notarized just a few months before his death. A will that left everything to me and nothing to Amelia. It was a testament to his final, desperate attempt to right the wrongs of a lifetime. He had left a note, a simple message scrawled on the back of the document. She never learned to love, Lucas. Don't be like her. My father had seen through her, even at the end, and he had made his final stand. He had given me the ultimate weapon. I had a copy of the new will and a plan to reveal it at the perfect moment. The day of the wedding was a day of calculated chaos. I watched from a distance, a shadow in the crowd, a ghost at the feast. I saw the caterer arrive, the food already smelling of disappointment. I saw the wilting bouquets, the disappointed looks on the faces of the guests. I watched the happy couple arrive, Ethan with a forced smile, Amelia a picture of perfect, infuriating grace. She looked so beautiful, so happy, so oblivious to the storm brewing around her. The narrator would likely smirk here, pointing out the classical irony of a beautiful woman, a siren about to crash her own ship. They'd note the subtle shift in power, the predator becoming the prey, the victim becoming the architect of his own revenge. The stage was set. The external narrator, who has by this point become an integral part of this twisted tale, would be buzzing with anticipation. The final act, the grand crescendo of this petty theatrical revenge, was about to unfold. They'd lean in, eager to see how the carefully constructed house of cards would come tumbling down. They'd note the subtle shift in the atmosphere, the forced smiles, the awkward conversations, the palpable tension building beneath the surface of the perfect wedding day. They'd comment on the beautiful absurdity of it all. A family's final unraveling, a testament to the bitter fruit of a poisoned tree, all set against a backdrop of white lace and expensive champagne. The first act of the play began during the cocktail hour. I had hired a freelance photographer, a talented but discreet professional, to capture the subtle imperfections. The tasteless food, the wilting flowers, the whispers among the guests. My accomplice Chloe was there, posing as a distant relative, a notebook and pen hidden in her clutch. She was my reporter on the inside, the one who would get the quotes, the reactions, the real story. I had also arranged for a delivery of expensive gourmet food from a different caterer, but I had it sent to the wrong address, a warehouse in a different city. The delivery driver, confused and angry, called the venue, leading to a loud public argument with the caterer. The guests, already unimpressed with the food, started to complain. Ethan, ever the concerned host, tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. The air was thick with the scent of disappointment. Then came the flowers. A huge, elaborate floral arrangement arrived from the rival florist. It was stunning, a masterpiece of rare orchids and delicate roses, and it was addressed to the groom, not the bride. Ethan, confused but thrilled, signed for it, believing it was a surprise gift from one of his high-powered friends. The florist, Mark, a true professional, explained that he'd been given the wrong address and was a few hours late. Amelia, seeing the stunning display and comparing it to her wilting bouquets, went ballistic. She publicly berated her own florist, a woman already on the verge of tears, for her amateurish and pathetic work. The guests, now with 2 public arguments to their names, were buzzing with gossip. The perfect facade of the wedding was cracking, revealing the bitter ugliness beneath. The main event, the dinner, was a disaster. The food was bland, the service was slow, and the champagne was flat. I had also anonymously leaked to a few of the more gossipy guests that Amelia had planned the wedding on a shoestring budget, and that the caterer was a bargain find. The rumors spread like wildfire, tainting every conversation. Ethan, who had spent a fortune on the wedding, was furious. He started to confront Amelia, asking her why she had chosen such a cheap option. Their public argument was loud, brutal, and a true spectacle. The guests, no longer whispering, were openly staring. The golden couple's perfect image was crumbling. But the final devastating blow was yet to come. It was time for the toast. I had paid a bartender to slip me a microphone when he handed a drink to the best man, a nervous, bumbling friend of Ethan's. I walked up to the stage, my heart pounding a rhythm of vengeance. I looked at Amelia, her face a mask of anger and frustration. She saw me, her eyes widening in a mixture of disbelief and horror. I raised my glass. "I want to propose a toast," I said, my voice clear and steady. The guests, silenced by the audacity, watched in morbid fascination. "To my sister, Amelia, a woman who always gets what she wants." I smiled, a cold, humorless grin. "Even if it means sacrificing everything." I didn't give her a chance to respond. "To a life of perfect weddings and perfect dresses," I continued, my voice rising. "A life built on the sacrifice of others. A life built on the very life of our father." I pulled out the notarized will, the final devastating piece of my puzzle. I held it up, a white banner of truth. "This," I said, my voice breaking with a manufactured sadness, "is my father's final will, the one he secretly drafted before his death, the one that leaves everything to me. Because he knew what she was capable of." Amelia's face, once a picture of perfect grace, contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. She lunged at me, but Ethan, horrified by the unfolding drama, held her back. The guests gasped, whispered, and took out their phones. Chloe, my secret accomplice, was already writing, her pen scratching furiously against the paper. The caterer, the florist, the guests, they all looked at Amelia with a mixture of pity and disgust. Her perfect world had been shattered. Her perfect wedding had been ruined. And all because of a truth she had buried for so long. She had used her father's life savings for a wedding. What I did at her wedding was my payment. The aftermath was a beautiful mess. The wedding was cancelled. The guests left in a state of shock and disbelief. Ethan, realizing he had been played for a fool, broke off the engagement. He couldn't marry a woman who had used her father's life savings for a dress, a woman who had lied about everything. Amelia, who had always been the golden child, was now the black sheep. Her reputation was in tatters, her social standing destroyed. She lost her fiancé, her friends, and her family's respect. She had everything she had ever wanted, a perfect, expensive wedding. And in a single, perfectly executed act of revenge, I had taken it all away. In the end, I stood alone, watching the wreckage, The silence was no longer suffocating. It was peaceful. I wasn't the boy who was always second best anymore. I was the one who had finally won. My father's final note, "She never learned to love," echoed in my mind. She never learned to love, and in her selfishness, she lost everything. My revenge wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson she would never forget. And as I walked away, a ghost in a crowd of shattered dreams, I finally felt free. I had avenged my father's death, and in doing so, I had finally found my own peace.